Imagine if you were reincarnated in a fantasy world as a crown prince but were disowned by your parents shortly after your birth because they thought your magic level was incredibly low. Hey guys, we're starting this new season in July with the anime I Actually the Strongest. Haruta is a man who suffered a lot in elementary school, so he dropped out of school and spent his last 5 years indoors. One day, a strong light emits from the screen of his smartphone, and suddenly he comes across a goddess congratulating him for having been selected to reincarnate. She informs him that in this new world, magic is absolute, so she will give him an awesome ability to make his life easier. As usual, Haruta was an excellent otaku who spent his days engrossed in anime and games, so in order to have a peaceful life, he accepts to reincarnate and use this awesome ability to have an easy life. When he opens his eyes, he notices that he has started his new beginning as a bald baby named Reinhardt. His father, the king, is very happy and tells his wife that a new prince has just been born, and since he has the royal mark on his chest, there is no doubt that he is his son. He wastes no time and orders an orb to be used to evaluate the baby's magic. The king reflects that the child born from the union of him and his wife, the Princess of Light who defeated the Demon Lord, must have unparalleled potential, being level 50 or higher, but to his surprise he is only level 2, besides not having any elements and only being able to use barrier magic. The damned king asks how something so crude like their son was born. She also thinks the same, so she decides to say that Prince Reinhardt died after his birth. In the world of the deities, the goddess runs desperately to her divine colleague. She says that she gave powerful abilities to someone who was reincarnated, but nobody noticed. Apparently the mana measuring devices in that world only show 2 digits, and when asked what level she gave the boy, the goddess reveals that she gave him the exaggerated level 1002. Seeing such a display of power, she quickly says that she surrenders. The boy thinks there is someone there, but continues his attack until he realizes that the voice was coming from the creature. Now calmer, Fenra claims that she tried to eat him to restore her mana, but she didn't expect the baby to be so powerful. He tries to communicate but obviously can't speak, making the creature wonder why he was acting rationally during the fight. The boy has the brilliant idea of creating a barrier that transforms thoughts into sound and placing it in his throat so he can speak normally. When asked who he really is, he reflects that Reinhardt is a very long name, so he introduces himself as Raruto and explains that he was born in a certain kingdom but was abandoned because his mana level was too low. Fenrir finds this strange because she feels a mana emanating from him that exceeds human limits. Desperate, she asks if he is the reincarnation of the Demon King, since she didn't want to reveal that he was an unemployed recluse. He decides to lie and confirms that he is the Demon King, which she believed without even questioning. She admits her defeat and tells him to take her life, but Raruto thinks this is unnecessary and tells her not to attack him in the future, so she swears that she will protect him by his name. Fire Fenrir. He then calls her Flay and decides to follow her path. Upon hearing this name, she reflects that she is quite lucky and calls out to the boy. She says that since he has now been given a name, they have both made a contract and Raruto is her new master from today on. He tries to explain that he only called her that so as not to say such a long name, but she doesn't give a damn when he is about to say that he didn't intend to make a contract. He loses his strength and falls to the ground, but it wasn't because he ran out of mana, but because he is hungry, and since he is a newborn, he needs breast milk to get the nutrients necessary for his growth, since he couldn't help his master in his current form. Flay decides to change his form and transforms into a Demolmano, since she couldn't be without clothes. Raruto surrounds her with the black barrier that joins her and forms a suit of clothes, but unfortunately she cannot solve her master's problem. While they are talking, Flay hears that someone is approaching them. He convinces her to use dialogue instead of violence and uses his magic so that she can hear his thoughts. A warrior in armor approaches them. When asked about what he is doing in that place, he informs her that he came to get the child, but she simply denies, saying that now this child has become her master and therefore he belongs to him. The warrior explains that Haruto is the son of a relative of his, and even though he was abandoned for certain reasons, he is there to save him. Besides thinking that the child might be hungry, so he decided to bring a bag with breast milk. Haruto tells her to get this bag, but the fool thinks that the man set up this plan because he knew that she would not be able to breastfeed the baby. When asked why he cares so much about this child, he explains that his wife got pregnant once, but her child ended up not surviving, so when he found out that the baby had been discarded because it had no potential, he decided to help her, claiming that every child that comes into the world deserves it live. Upon hearing such a tragic story, Flay starts to cry immediately. Seeing that she is not a bad person and that she will not abandon her master, the man proposes that she work in his castle so that she can take care of Haruto while he receives the proper care. Since she had no other option, Flay accepts the deal. Before leaving, they break the basket that the child was in to create a fake scene. After doing this, they head to their new home. Thus, 9 years have passed since they were under the care of Marquess Gold. Haruto did not intend to stay for long, but ended up giving in to to the comfort he feels when he is with his family. Apparently, he does not get along very well with his little sister Charlotte, which makes him very sad because he does not know why she hates him. But with Flay, it is completely different, where the girl is super attached to her. Charlotte invites her to play together, but her request is refused. But Flay reconsiders when her master tells them to play together. While they were having fun outside, Haruto just watched from the window. At that moment, his mother appears and tells him not to feel bad about it. She claims that her daughter feels awkward around him because she doesn't know how to act with boys her own age. But on the other hand, she manages to get along very well with Flay, who is also a girl. But this only feeds the boy's paranoia because now he thinks that his little sister has noticed that he is actually an uncle of almost 30 years old. His mother then gives him the idea of doing something special for Charlotte. This way he will show her the good side of having an older brother and change the way she sees him. He also tells him not to stay locked in his room all day and to play with his little sister from time to time. In his room, lying on the bed, Haruto reflects that he wants to be independent, but if he leaves, Flay will go with him, which would consequently make his little sister hate him even more. But if he leaves Flay, she would most likely prefer to throw her life away rather than not serve her master. In order to leave, Haruto has studied a lot about barrier magic and managed to make a kind of copy of himself, but despite how identical he seems, he cannot speak or move, and he also has to make a copy of Flay if he wants to leave. At that moment, his father calls him. Outside, Gold says that he will start teaching him how to use a sword because he must develop other skills since he has an extremely low level of magic. Haruto says that he has been studying ancient magic, making his father think that the boy has found potential in the magic of the mythical era, and he concludes that this is the reason why the boy stays locked in his room all day. But before running away from training, Gold says who needs to test everything and points out that he might have a talent for fencing. Since he has no other option, he accepts to take this test. Haruto knows that his father is an experienced warrior and is known throughout the kingdom as the Trembling Warhammer. To avoid getting hurt, he uses a barrier to cover his body and advances towards his father with a lunge, but his strength is so great that he ends up breaking his sword, which leaves his father frightened, especially when he sees the hole in the ground. To test the boy, he applies a blow from the side, but Haruto manages to dodge it, leaving both his father and himself impressed. Gold warns that to dodge such a blow, he must be at least level 30. Haruto is also curious about this, but remembers that one day he suspected that his mana could have 3 digits, but only confirmed that it really is level 2. Since the highest level of a human was 77, he did not even consider looking for a 4th digit. In addition to concluding that not having an element allows him to use magic more efficiently, Haruto wonders if this is such an appealing ability that the goddess gave him. His father concludes that the boy had an unconscious awakening, so he decides to train him to be a first-class swordsman, while his little sister just watched from afar later, talking to his wife. Gold explains that he started Haruto's training and raises the hypothesis that he is a demon who returned to the world. According to him, some time ago, in the royal family, someone had an affair with a demon and, as rare as it is, someone with demonic traits can still be born. Gold points out that the royal mark has powers that are still unknown. In addition to explaining why Flea shows so much respect for him, the woman claims that her son is a normal child, and the two conclude that they will make her son happy no matter what happens. Charlotte, who was awake, heard everything and in her mind emphasizes that there is no way her brother is a demon. He hears a great commotion outside and activates his camera system to understand what is happening. Upon seeing several injured people, he goes out to check what happened and, after asking his father, discovers that multiple bandit attacks have recently occurred in their territory. With information about the enemy base, they decided to take action but ended up falling into an ambush. He was cautious when leaving and swore not to take prisoners, but in the end, it turned out that way sadly. His father says that this is a difficult scene for someone so young to witness, asking him to go inside, and Haruto actually does. He turns around and starts walking, but ends up bumping into Fry, who mocks his father for losing to amateur bandits. Haruto simply calls her name and tells her to shut up, irritated. She immediately falls silent, feeling the pressure of his aura, and as Haruto walks among the soldiers, he casts his barrier magic on them. This magic acts as a healing ability, making wounds disappear, closing cuts, restoring eyes, and even regenerating limbs. He heals his father's entire army, leaving them unable to comprehend what just happened. While Haruto sleeps peacefully, Fry remains at his door. When he gets up and thinks about leaving the room, he ends up bumping into her, who does not respond to his questions. Then he remembers that she has not spoken since earlier when he told her to shut up. When he orders her to speak again, Fry hesitates, fearing that she may have offended him in some way. Haruto is surprised that she does not understand the reason for his anger and decides to take her for a walk. He takes her to the terrace, where he projects several floating screens, Tony Stark style. Through these screens, he begins begins searching for the men who attacked his father. The screens cover the entire region, and he locates a group that seems to be thieves, but with some soldiers among them. This makes him hesitate, but Fry raises an important point. If the enemies knew about his father's mission and set up an ambush, then there are probably spies working with them. Haruto understands the situation and decides to eliminate everyone there. He creates a barrier around the group and launches them far away. Meanwhile, his little sister watches from her bedroom window and ends up seeing Haruto and Fry flying in front of the moon. At the bandits' camp, they are celebrating happily, drinking and rejoicing. Inside one of the houses, they call an old man their leader, saying that remembering the terrified look of the warhammer makes the drink taste even better. But the old man warns them not to get too excited because they let him escape, and they can only truly celebrate once Haruto is eliminated. At that moment, Haruto appears at the door alongside Fry, who has already knocked out one of the men. The bandits try to react, but Haruto paralyzes them on the ground using his barriers. One of them mocks him, saying that being trapped by barriers is ridiculous, but Haruto gets annoyed and pins him against the wall. He glares at the others who are still conscious and says that all they need to do is answer his questions. He warns them that any lie will cost them dearly, and, terrified, the bandits confess everything. They reveal that they are spies from the neighboring country, infiltrated as thieves to spread chaos in the region. They also admit that there are likely accomplices at the border. Additionally, one of them reveals that there is a collaborator within the country but claims to know nothing beyond that. Haruto reflects that for someone to be involved in this plan, they must have more influence than his own father. He starts thinking about who, within the empire, might wish for his death, but he does not yet have an answer. The bandits, thinking they will be released, say they have already told everything they know. But Haruto simply thanks them and orders Fry to burn down the entire fortress. The bandits try to justify themselves, saying they were just following orders, but Haruto states that sparing those who harmed his father would be unthinkable. Fry obeys and makes the flames consume the entire place, throwing the enemies into chaos. As the fortress burns, Haruto and Fry walk out calmly. Haruto states that he does not understand much about imperial soldiers or conflicts between nations, but since they were the ones who started this confrontation, he will show no mercy. For now, he decides to send an anonymous letter to his father, reporting the extermination of the bandits responsible for the attack. Sometime later, after confirming the truth of the information, they went to the Lord to inform him about the destruction of the enemy group. He is surprised to learn that someone burned the fortress to the ground, and even the captured prisoners confirm this. Accepting this outcome, he orders a thorough investigation, as he knew they were not mere thieves but did not expect imperial involvement. Char, who had been in his lap the whole time, asks her father who could have eliminated the bandits, but he doesn't know how to answer. However, the precision, brutality, and strength required for such an action pointed to only one person. She was stronger than him and could certainly have done that. She always patrolled the region, driving away and hunting monsters, so she could have eliminated the bandits while doing one of those rounds. But before he finishes speaking, Char jumps off his lap and says that she still has things to resolve. Leaving the room, she remembers what she witnessed the night before and begins questioning who Haruto really is. Determined, she goes to Fry and demands an honest answer, asking if they are the Harutos. Fry is confused by the question and thinks Char is delirious, but the girl explains that she saw her brother and Fry flying the previous night. Char knows that Haruto doesn't have enough mana to fly, so she went to check his room. There, she found him as usual but realized that his usual terrifying aura was not present, which intrigued her. She questions Fry about the meaning of this, and the demon gets excited upon realizing that Char can sense Haruto's power. Fry explains that he was born blessed with a colossal magical power, far beyond human limits. She admits that, even being a demon, she could never surpass him. Char then asks if Fry knows what Haruto really is, but the answer she receives is unexpected. Fry simply says that Char is worrying about irrelevant things and that if she keeps acting like this, she won't grow properly. And she even throws a threat, warning that if she continues like this, she'll end up turning into a board. Sometime later, Fry tells Haruto everything, warning him about his little sister's intense surveillance. He quickly understands the reason for her strange behavior and realizes that, to Char, he has become extremely suspicious. Moreover, he finds out that she even discovered the clone, which leads him to create a surveillance barrier based on her movements. Finally, Fry discreetly leans to the side and asks Haruto why there are two of him, but he refuses to answer. One night, as he leaves his room to go to the bathroom, Haruto notices Char waiting outside. As soon as he exits, she starts following him. He thinks about confronting her and asking why she's spying, but when he turns to speak, Char runs away. He then decides to ignore her and head to the bathroom, thinking she wouldn't follow him there, but he ends up discovering that she does even in those moments. Days go by and this situation continues. Char follows him on every occasion, during training, studies, walks, and even when he bathes. Then, during a meal, his father announces that Char and her mother will travel alone. He explains that it is a festival he always attends, but this time, he won't be able to accompany them, leaving the two in his place. Haruto suggests that they take Free along, but his mother says she hasn't seen her in a long time and assumes she is doing something for him. At that moment, Haruto remembers that he had sent Free to intimidate the nearby monsters and prevent attacks on the city. While he thinks about this, Char stares at him intently, eager to uncover some secret of his. Later, while Haruto sleeps, the surveillance barrier he set on Char starts to sound an alarm. He checks the cameras and sees that her carriage is being attacked. The guards start falling, and Char is forced to defend herself from the Imperial soldiers' attacks. She manages to block a few blows but ends up being hit in the leg. In the middle of the battle, one of Haruto's barriers appears near Char's ear, giving her instructions. Char passes the instructions to her mother, who follows them immediately. They are guided to a cliff, where the barrier orders them to jump. Char's mother hesitates for a moment but trusts her daughter and jumps right after. She uses her magic to cushion the fall, but still needs to endure some of the impact. Almost out of energy, Char says that they are close and asks to continue forward. She leads them to a cave that seems like a good hiding place. Inside, they find fluorescent mosses, illuminating the surroundings, making the cave not so good for hiding. Her mother decides to look for the person who indicated the direction, believing they would be nearby and heroes of justice. She explains to Char what these heroes are and says she will go to find them, but Char begs her not to go, crying desperately. Even so, her mother tries to reassure her, promising to come back safely. Man, what a flag idea, my god. She leaves the cave determined to ensure no one finds Char. Upon reaching the entrance, she notices an illusionary magic hiding the passage. But before she can react, the soldiers appear. She knows she cannot be captured, so she pulls out a pocket knife and points it to her own neck. She begins murmuring apologies to her family, bringing the blade closer to her throat. However, before she can harm herself, the knife disappears into the air. Haruto appears like lightning, electrocuting her lightly to knock her out. He grumbles that flying at high speed wasn't enough and that he was very late. He says that this time the enemies really pissed him off. One of the soldiers tries to question who he is, but Haruto sends him flying with a blow and tells them all to shut up. Meanwhile, Char prays inside the cave, anxious about her mother. Then, footsteps echo at the entrance. Haruto, using a different voice, speaks to her. He says that her mother is unconscious and that she should wait and take care of her, as help will come soon. Char listens carefully and feels her brother's terrifying aura, but believes he came to save them. Gathering courage, she steps out from behind the stone and calls him. Haruto answers immediately. She then asks if he is a hero of justice. He gets irritated at the first conversation with Char, but blames her nonsensical question. Even so, he decides to play along and says yes, he is the hero of justice. Char smiles and says she already knew, claiming that he would use his powers to punish the wrongdoers. She explains that her mother taught her that heroes use their gifts to help people. Haruto asks her to keep it a secret. Char, excited, promises to lie for him to their father. Haruto then leaves, saying he will take care of the bandits outside. That night, they report to both of them that her mother and Char are safe and now being escorted by Free. Moreover, they say that the injured guards have recovered spontaneously once again. Her father asks Haruto what he thinks about this, and he simply answers that the person who helped them will stay on their side as long as they behave. He then reveals that he already knew the soldiers who attacked his mother and sister were from the Empire. Her father is suspicious, but Haruto drags the conversation until he makes him realize that there is a spy infiltrated in the territory. Impressed, the Lord reflects on how hard it is to believe Haruto is only 8 years old. Haruto apologizes and says that, inside, he's an old man. While his father comments on a certain cunning fox who decided to show up, the girls arrive. Char, excited, runs to hug her father. To everyone's surprise, she also hugs Haruto, saying she missed him. She then begins to speak suspiciously about her change in behavior, but she quickly regrets and says that now she loves her brother, leaving Fry jealous. If you like, after saving Chara and her mother while pretending to be a justice ally, Haruto gets caught off guard by something unexpected. His little sister suddenly starts liking him a lot. A few days later, while he's still in his room, Chara barges in out of nowhere, calling her brother to come play. Once again, he asks if she hasn't learned to knock yet. With the most shameless face possible, she says, "Next time I will." Since that day, she's been coming to his room almost every day. He used to feel weird when she hated him, but now he doesn't even know how to feel with her being all sweet. Still, he doesn't mind. Having her around is like having a little pet that actually likes him. Then she notices Haruto's magic screens and asks what they are. He answers honestly, they're part of his surveillance magic. Chara asks if that's the ancient magic Haruto's been studying, and he suddenly remembers the lie he told his father about locking himself in his room to study old magic, when in reality, he was just slacking off. He tries to lie again, saying it's a tough field because there are no books on the subject. But Chara completely wrecks him by saying there are books about it. She's seen them in the library and invites him to go check them out. She leads him to a part of the library he didn't even know existed and, all by herself, gathers every book related to the subject and hands them to him. Haruto can't help but be impressed. He starts reading about ancient magic that deals with non-elemental forces, unlike modern magic. He realizes his barrier spells might be connected to this forgotten type of power and gets hyped by the discoveries. Chara even explains a few things to him. He asks how she read such a complicated book full of hard words, and she says her mom and Flay helped her with it, and now she wants her brother to read to her too. Haruto sees this as the perfect chance to activate his big brother mode. But before he can react, Chara hops out of her chair and sits right on his lap, saying, "When mom reads to me, we do it like this." Haruto just decides to roll with it. He starts reading, and the topics in the book remind him of stuff you'd see in Japanese anime. He suddenly says he misses watching anime. Ever since he reincarnated into this world, he hasn't been able to. Chara gets curious about the word anime and asks what it is. Haruto hesitates, but ends up explaining it to her. He starts breaking down how animation works, finishing with the idea of pictures that move and talk. Chara stares at him wide-eyed in awe, which makes Haruto a bit nervous. He's afraid she'll think he's a weirdo, but instead, she gets super excited. She thinks that sounds like some kind of awesome magic, and her eyes sparkle with curiosity. She says she wants to see this thing called anime, and tells him that seeing him so pumped up makes her happy. That alone gives Haruto a boost of energy, and he sets out to make it happen. 2 weeks later, he somehow manages to access a modern Japanese internet network from inside the Isekai world. He skips the part where he explains how, but hey, it works. He even manages to log into his old streaming account, which is still active. He sets up a kid's profile for Chara and lets her pick out some anime to watch. She's amazed by the magical-looking device, and even more amazed that she can finally see this anime thing. While browsing the catalog, she finds a magical girl anime, something like Madoka, and instantly shows interest. Haruto tells her she made a great choice and puts it on. This classic mahou shoujo stuff. Chara is blown away by what she sees. The moving images are just unbelievable to her. Haruto is happy she's enjoying it, but there's a problem. She doesn't understand a word they're saying. He immediately gets it. Of course, she doesn't know Japanese. Teaching it to her seems tough at first, but then again, she's 5. Maybe she could learn it. So he creates kanji images and teaches her the language using a setup like a children's picture book. Turns out she loves it. She finds the symbols beautiful and loves how each one has a meaning. She ends up mastering hiragana and katakana in just 2 hours, 2 of the alphabets, so to speak, that make up the Japanese language. She also learns how to search on Google, even looking up the meaning of justice, which leaves Haruto stunned. She had already mastered the basic kanji you'd find in an elementary school curriculum. 2 weeks later, Chara's back. She bursts into her brother's room again and begs him to let her keep watching the anime about zombies and Power Rangers. She's into the whole Saitama City overrun by zombies thing, and the heroes of justice saving and protecting the people. Haruto mentions that cars, trains, and planes probably don't make sense to her, but Chara casually replies, "As long as you go with the flow, everything makes sense." Haruto notes that it's only been 2 weeks since she started watching anime, and she's already fluent in Japanese. He starts suspecting that maybe Chara's a genius. And although part of him thinks maybe letting her binge anime all day isn't the healthiest thing, seeing her so happy, the big brother in him doesn't want to take it away from her. But still, he needs to be strict. That becomes hard when she suddenly strikes a superhero pose. But just as she's about to click on the next episode, Haruto stops her. He tells her he can't let her watch an entire season in one sitting. He lays down a rule, only 3 hours of screen time per day. Chara is devastated by this cruel twist of fate. She asks why. Haruto says it's not healthy for kids. She argues that she's fine, but he stands his ground, calling her to dinner. At dinner, Chara is practically falling asleep at the table. Their father mentions she's been spending a lot of time with Haruto and asks what they've been up to. Suddenly wide awake, Chara proudly declares, "We're studying ancient magic." Their mother is amazed, but tells Haruto to keep an eye on her so she doesn't overdo it. They finish dinner and head to their rooms, but Chara still follows Haruto around. Haruto finally tells her that even if she tags along, she won't be watching more anime tonight. He tells her to go take a bath and get ready for bed. Defeated, she walks away, sulking the whole way. While Haruto is taking a bath, Chara shows up again. He asks what she's doing there and she says, "You told me to take a bath, so here I am." She says that if she can't watch anime, there's nothing else to do but sleep, already sounding like a true otaku. While Haruto is washing up, she starts staring at his chest. Chara asks about the mark he has there. She says she's seen it before, and suddenly remembers, calling it the mark of a hero of justice. Haruto just plays along with her anime nonsense, telling her to keep it a secret so he can continue being a hero in peace. After the bath, she says goodnight at his door, but a few minutes later, she's asleep in his bed. Their mom peeks in from the hallway, smiling at the sight of them getting along so well. "Yes, as siblings. Let's just pretend we didn't hear anything weird," Chara said in those last 15 seconds of anime logic. A few days later, their father leaves to deal with some bandits. Chara seems down about it, but Haruto reassures her. This time, the enemies are just peasants, and their dad can definitely handle it. Chara asks why those people became bandits in the first place. Haruto tells her it's because of a local power struggle affecting the region, which made people act out. Still downcast, Chara asks if there isn't a way to make everyone happy. Haruto tells her that's what everyone wants, but it's not an easy thing to do. Then she looks at him and asks, "Is it even impossible for you, the hero?" She starts going on about how Haruto's powers should be used for the good of humanity, and how he could save everyone. Haruto begins to wonder what anime she pulled that from. She keeps pushing him to do it. Eventually, he gives in. Then she asks, "Aren't you gonna transform?" With puppy dog eyes, she begs him to do it, and Haruto, with no escape, gives in. He strikes a pose and transforms, instantly growing into adult size. Chara is amazed by his hero outfit. Haruto is so embarrassed, he feels like he could be starting for a washed-up soccer team. She gets excited and says she wants to go with him, but he refuses. Instead, he sets up a magic screen for her to watch everything he does in real time. Now up in a tree, he thinks things are starting to get pretty complicated, but he decides to push through for Chara's sake. He soon spots the bandits and traps them inside a barrier. At first, he figures just leaving them stuck like that is good enough, but Chara would probably want to see some action. So he charges in, making a dramatic entrance and giving a full-on dad-level justice speech. When the bandits rush him, he takes them all down without even breaking a sweat. Right then, his dad shows up. He asks who this guy is and why he just took out those bandits. Haruto considers staying in character and giving a cool fake name, but his brain blanks, so he ends up calling himself, still pending, Gold. His dad asks if he's the one who saved his wife and daughter. Haruto hints that maybe he was. Gold then asks his true intentions. Haruto says he only wants one thing, justice and nothing but justice. He instantly cringes at his own line and takes off flying, too embarrassed to keep playing hero. He gets home exhausted and finds Chara waiting, asking when he's going to do that again. Even though he's reluctant, he keeps doing his hero stuff and soon becomes known around the region as the Black Knight. Months pass. After tons of testing, Haruto finally manages to make a working clone of himself. He runs a few tests and finds out the copy is annoyingly similar to him. As they talk, Chara suddenly pops out from under a blanket. Neither of them had noticed she was even there. She's shocked. There are two Harutos? As Haruto talks to her, he tries to get the clone to do his chores, so he can keep procrastinating. But the clone refuses. Turns out it's useless at the one thing it was supposed to be good at. Outside, a prince and princess show up at their house. Right away, they're rude. Haruto quickly realizes they're his siblings. The prince starts yelling at their dad, and also insults his sister, calling her a political tool. Then he challenges Haruto to a duel, just because Haruto looked at him the wrong way. The prince is super confident, knowing Haruto is only level 2. Haruto definitely doesn't want to be there, but agrees anyway. As they face off, Haruto checks the prince's stats to figure out why he's acting so arrogant. Turns out, the guy's only level 9, and the level cap is 40. Haruto thinks, the greatest sage in this world was only level 77. Looking at my dad and sister's stats, this guy's not even rare. The prince charges him, but Haruto easily dodges. The prince yells, "Stop dodging and let me discipline you." Haruto activates some body-enhancing magic and lets the prince land a hit, but while the prince is going off, yelling for him to fight back, Haruto appears behind him in an instant and hits him hard. Still not satisfied, the prince attacks again, only to be humiliated once more. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Want to see more? Just type part 4 in the comments, and I'll drop it soon. See you next time.